Hi everyone, it's Mr. Driscoll, and welcome to our screencast on conflict in the Middle East. Now, I split this up into two different screencasts just because there's so much information, so much to get through. So the first one will basically be talking about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and some of the events leading up to that. The second screencast will be more focused on the ongoing crisis in the past decade or so. Okay, so for this screencast, what is the essential question? Well, instead of just talking about what happened, we're going to discuss what were the conditions that were there that led to this conflict. Okay, what were the developments that happened along the way that created this situation that's so volatile up to this point in history. Okay, our theme in world history is similar to the last few we've had, and that's competition among countries. Okay, recurring violence and continuing efforts at international mediation have been the norm in the Middle East for decades. It has been a long time since there hasn't been a time of violence and conflict in this region. And hopefully at the end of the screencast you'll know a little bit more about the background and why they're fighting, not just that they're fighting. Okay, the first main idea. Israel was founded as a Jewish state in 1948. But from that time to this day, a lot of Palestinian Arabs refuse to recognize it. They assume that it doesn't even exist. Okay? Others that are more moderate know that it's there, know that they have political legitimacy, but how do we create a Palestinian state and all that goes with that? And that's really where we're at with the conflict today. Okay. So after World War I, a lot of the Jews migrated to Palestine, and the Zionists, that's what they were called, they claimed to be moving to their promised land, or their biblical land that they had the right to. Now, in 1947, the United Nations declared that Palestine should be divided into different sections. Okay, there should be a Jewish state and an Arab state. We can see in the graph to the right here, that's the UN partition plan. The orange sections, that was where the Arabs would have their own government, and the green parts would be where the Jewish state would be. As we can also see, Jerusalem is considered an international city in this plan. Now, after this, first of all, on that map, the majority of the population in any of those regions was heavily Muslim, heavily Arab. So, as soon as this happened, the Muslim neighbors invaded, and it was a complete disaster. Okay, they didn't stand a chance against the Israeli armed forces, but they still didn't recognize Israel. So, as a result of this, hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees, they either fled to other countries in the area or they remained refugees within the Israeli territories. Okay, and again, the creation of Palestine as a state, okay, that's what they're still fighting for. The idea that the Muslim Arabs would have their own country in this region, they're still fighting that idea to this day. Okay, switching to Egypt. After Nasser came to power, he gained control of the Suez Canal. Why is that important? Well, that was a very powerful, or very important strategic waterway connecting the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean. At that time, it was in control of Britain and France. Once Nasser nationalized it, they responded by going to war. Now, the United States and the Soviet Union actually came together at this time, which may seem as a shock to you after coming off the Cold War unit. They supported Egypt. Okay, they said that France, Britain, and Israel should withdraw. After this, it gives Nasser a lot of clout. Okay, he's looked up to in the Arab community, and he promoted what was called Pan-Arabism. This means that he wanted to unite all the Arab-speaking peoples in the region with the eventual hope or goal to create one Arab republic that united all of the different countries. Okay, the conflict between Israel and other states in the Middle East didn't end. Okay, it actually kept escalating over the years. In 1967, Egypt imposed a blockade against Israeli shipping. Okay, remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, we talked about a blockade, what that means. Well, after the Israelis saw this as an act of war, and they responded in what was called the Six-Day War. Okay, again, Israel, they ended up winning very quickly. They seized the Sinai Peninsula and the territory of the West Bank of Jordan, and the Golan Heights, tripling the size of its territory. If we see in the map here, the size of Israel land-wise tripled in size as a result of this. Also, 1 million new Palestinians were now living under Israeli control after this expansion. Okay, in 1973, Egypt and Syria led a surprise attack on Israel during the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. At first, it worked. Okay, Israel was on the defensive; they were being pushed back, but once they got their feet under them, they were victorious again. They had superior weaponry and military, partly backed by the United States and Western powers. Now, in connection with the war, the Organization for Oil-Producing Countries, known as OPEC, they announced a large price increase to foreign countries. Now, this led to huge shortages of gas and oil throughout the world, and it created enormous economic problems in the West. We can see to the right, that's the gas lines. Okay? There were people parked for miles trying to get gas at the gas stations. There wasn't any there. The little that there was, the price spiked, and what was left usually ran out very quickly. Here we can take a look at the map of the Middle East and who is an OPEC member. It may be difficult to see, but the purple spots, they are the oil-rich oil fields, okay, in the Middle East. The orange countries, okay, they're OPEC members. The green are not, okay, but basically the orange countries, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, they're all very oil-rich and members of OPEC. Okay, in 1978, U.S. President Jimmy Carter met with Anwar al-Sadat of Egypt and Israeli Prime Minister Begin at Camp David in the United States. Okay, the goal of this was to come up with some type of peace settlement. The result of it, which was known as the Camp David Accords, that was an agreement to sign an Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty and a commitment of the Israeli withdrawal from the Sinai. Okay, so even though this agreement happened, not all the Arab countries recognized it. Okay, they didn't all come aboard with this, and many outright opposed of this particular act. Okay, so just as a quick rundown of some of the basic events that happened. Great Britain rejects the proposal for an independent state, but does agree to have Jewish settlers move there. Okay, so they didn't have their own country at first, but they were allowed to settle. Then the UN resolution, which happened later on, divided Palestine into a Jewish and Arab country, or Arab nation states. Israel came into existence in 1948, followed by an Arab invasion. It was defeated, and then hundreds of thousands of Palestinians became refugees in the area. And then, of course, the events that unfolded in the aftermath of that. Okay. In our next screencast, okay, we'll be turning towards the ongoing crisis in the Middle East. What's happened in the last few decades since then? We'll touch on a lot of different topics such as Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, the current wars, U.S. involvement. So there's a lot in the next screencast too. If you have any questions on this, please feel free to write online, send a message to Enmodo, or of course you can discuss it in class with me. All right, hope you enjoyed the screencast.